you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our international guests. My name is Burton Lucy. Pleased, very happy to be with you for this 10th edition of the Casablanca Insurance Days, placed on Mohammed VI. We have a rich event day that started with the official ceremony with the keynote speeches, the official speeches, and the celebration of this 10th of this must-attend meeting of the insurance world. 11 years, if we also reckon the years, 10 editions, and 11 years that you have been meeting with us. You have been more than 10,000 participants over the 10 make us fill us with pride. More than 10,000 attendees to these 10 editions, 350 speakers, 48 countries represented. I would like you please to applaud all of the members here, as well as featured five for this, the United States. Thank you for your here. The objective is unchanged: to meet, to debate, to talk, to confront idea, to draw inspiration one from another during this advice. Add on this technological modern thinking. Last year we had a big car behind us on the podium. Every year there's some novelty. So this is something we'd like to have again and again, year on year on. Two QR codes are going to be displayed behind me. The team, could you please display the first QR code that is going to allow you to download the app that program, but also presentations, interviews of different speakers, extremely interesting interviews that I would like and urge you to read and hear. And the second one to my left hand side, this QR code. And also our proof will find, and you get an email of memorable pictures of this tent. Have a good morning ahead of us with high speakers, so please stay with us until lunchtime. Did we the economic and financial prospects the world over on the insurance sector, with a focus on the African continent, to the cyber risks, emergent risks, and influence business models of insurers. Good morning. We are also delighted to kick off the day with a world-renowned experts, and we are in a world of uncertainty. We have uncertainty of having him video conference or remotely. So he's going to be with us. Is the founder of the must with he's written, he's author, he's well known and reputed for his economist. I'm not saying this is a recent opinion scope study to talk about the room of insurance universe filled with expansion risks. Mr. Mark Twatty, over to you. Can you hear us? And partly we can hear you also well. How about me? We can hear you, we can see you, the sound, everything is good. Okay, over to you, Mr. Tawari. Thank you very much. Well, I wanted to be with you physically, but unfortunately, my plane, the plane of yesterday has been cancelled. So that is maktub. This was written, but I'm here with you, video conference. So this is, I think, a practical example of how we can overcome uncertainties. Of course, uncertainties are here to be overcome. This is a very important take-home message, and your sector certainly showed up. We have to be greater and stronger than the uncertainties, and we have to be aware of the crisis being always opportunity faces. Since I have a lot to say and a very limited time, I'm going to start by saying hats off to the Moroccan economy. I have been watching since 80. Out of inflation, GDP has increased by 432%. It is 3.6% of growth per annum on average. The world GDP growth 3.5%. On the African continent, it's hovering around 0.7%. Algeria close by is 2.5% growth. France 1.7%, and Morocco, I repeat, 3.6%. I tip my hat to you, and it's. I was there in Morocco in 2019, and this vigor certainly is not being belied. And we are going to. I'm sure you're going to go. The second, also hats off to you, is in the insurance sector, as we are going to see now. It is a more and more complex world, filled with uncertainties, fraught with uncertainties. Of course, you are still here. Continue that way. And we need more and more, you in Morocco, because, of course, the role of insurance is essential in the economy. It's going to be a shield, a protective shield for a better tranquility, stability, and be able to invest, innovate. And this is the key to it. The key role of insurance, we're going to talk about that, is, of course, to ensure quote-unquote, the stability, forget about the problems, to allow the households, the corporate world, to invest, to innovate, and to our economies and countries to grow. So, a fortiori, in this complex phase, with the role of the counseling role of the service provided to our customers by the insurers. The role of advisory of the insurer is essential. And I'm here to talk about that. Indeed, we're going to talk about all the crises. It's true we have gone through dramatic crises recently with the COVID and with the geopolitical risks. But I'm tempted to say, I have been doing this job for the last 25 years. We have gone through all of those crises since the internet crack, the 11th of September, the 9/11, the subprime, and every time we are being told, well, that's the end of it. We're not going to come over it. But still, we're here. And I think this is the most important. As Nietzsche said, everything that doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And that's the real stake and challenge. Crises are always fraught with opportunities. I'm not going to say all of the crises, but first the subprime crisis. Because it's a rule of life that is now with us. The economy is not a hard science. It's not an exact one. It's a one evolving with time. So this, of course, guarantees us the stability. But however, there are rules that do not change. You have to say to your customer is that the higher the yield, the higher the risk. And if you really want to have a high yield, the financial year, you have to make and to take risks. Of course, if you don't want, and that can be justified, well, you have to content yourself with small and low yields. The problem is Cupid, you see, that always want to transform this rule. It happens to me almost every day. I'm being told, Mr. Tawati, I have a little savings. I have some savings that I would like to invest, and without risk. This does not exist, mostly when it comes to internal trading, etc., etc. So, coming back to the subprime, I was in a French bank, and it is true that by and large, what we wanted to do is to transform that rule. We wanted to increase the yield without so doing for the risk. To remain simple, we took those subprime debts, extremely dangerous for non-solvent households. We made securitization, and products have fallen triple A by the rating agencies. So this was very serious. Some banks have created monetary dynamic boxes, which means monetary without risk, dynamic with high yield. Where does the yield stem from? From the subprimes. When the subprime bubble out, this product explodes, does not lose 15%, it disappears. So it's zero yield, and that's very bad. There are also the crypto monies, cryptocurrencies. We have to be extremely cautious. We're talking about those who have one money, but the insurer role is to say caveat, be prudent, do not leave, of course, high risk, because the problem since the subprime, we have saved the world in 2009, yes, but we have triggered a new policy that we have set up during the 29 that is being called, of course, the budget relaunch, that has been coupled with the machine, the money-making machine. So these money-making machines means creating money. Normally we have to have, of course, monetary mass counterparts, gold, currencies, and also securities and state bonds. But before that, it has to have that, of course. Now, what is the money-making machine? It means that they have no monetary counterpart. I would create money ex nihilo, and with this artificially created money, I'm going to finance the public debt service. And that's very bad, because the public finances automatically financed this public debt. And it's very difficult, because the higher the debt, the higher the interest rate. And what happened is that the higher the public debt, the lower the interest rate. So since the Elysee up until Bercy, when I told them, pay attention to that, because the interest rates are going upping and it will break the economic activity, they were frightened somewhere. And of course they said, oh, don't say that. And I say the higher the debt, the lower the interest rate. And it was the trap that we fell into. Now we are footing the tap for that. We are paying. So it is a verifiable rule. When we create a lot of money through the printing press, we increase the request artificially vis-a-vis the offer, and therefore the prices are going to increase. If, of course, this is the case, the inflation increases, and that's very important, because the inflation started since 2021. It did not start in Ukraine, and it had added this into this inflation. Inflation started since 2021. Unfortunately, the central bank have done a laissez-faire, be it in the Euro zone or the US. So it has become out of control. Today we are being told there's no inflation. No, inflation is coming back. Unfortunately, inflation is just like toothpaste. So you have to take out from once out of the tube, you cannot tube it in back. And this has become uncontrollable. All of this because of this excessive printing presses of money. We have stopped printing money, so much so that when you do that, the interest rate, that's very important for the insurance, the interest rates, monetary and bonds, treasury and state bonds have increased. This is the case of France today. Every year, the burden of the interest of the debt costs us between 50 and 75 billion euros. You see, many are telling me the debt, of course, we can do without, it's the future generations who are going to pay. No, it's not nice. And mostly it's not true. It's false. We pay today 75 billion euros. This is the first budget center of the state. And it is the same thing in Europe. Some countries have paid more effort. That's very dangerous, because it questions the very stability of these countries. And as at the end of May, the rating agencies may degrade the rate France. So this is a recurring, very important financial risk. Very important. Is this making it believe that the crises are behind it? Look at the stock market. They continue increasing. We have seen during the coronavirus, it has nosedived by 30 plus. 50% in a couple of weeks. Sometimes some months later, of course, because of the war crisis and geopolitical situation, the marketplace do not want to see the reality facing them. They are kind of treated, quote unquote, to the liquidity. They are really over liquid, and that is going to be the main risk that we will have to manage. And the insurance sector is no exception, though. This is where we have to take postures and stances over the risk, and the yield risk should not be neglected. I would also say this is related to financial situation, but other risks that we have to manage is the geopolitical. Well, we don't control it, but there are other risks, climate risks. And it is true, I'm being often hearing, well, stop your economic growth. We cannot grow indefinitely growing. Because the infinite growth in a finite world, technically, it's impossible. But we are being told what to do. We need to degrow. Yeah. Degrowth, in other words, a reduction of the level of some countries, emerging countries, poor countries. Just this very Italian figure showing the importance of the growth of the trade exchanges, Morocco. What we know, it is true that we in Morocco, you have a situation back in the 80s. Listen to this incredible figure. Back then you had half of the human species or humankind living under the threshold of extreme poverty with less than $1 a day. Half of all humans on Earth. Today, thanks to this growth, globalization, trade exchanges, investments, the share of the world population living under the threshold of extreme poverty has gotten back from 50% to 8.5%. So this is an unseen, unprecedented human progress. So during the coronavirus, where we wanted to stop the word, the number of the poor has increased the world over by 200 million people. So if you do degrowth, it's unthinkable of destruction of riches, of job destruction, and even developed countries, rich countries, they will face difficulties because with no growth and with the reduction of employment, with the increase in societal risks and joblessness, of course, that causes problems. And this is where the insurance industry has that role to discharge of, because the insurance collects monies on a longer period of time to invest them. So it's the only single means to do infinite growth in a finite world. It's by optimizing the existing situation through technological progress. We are in the same world, but we need to innovate, find, design, devise new technological means in services. This we can take the plane more, which was the case for me yesterday. But of course, but we are now imposing you to take, of course, 4 times more than planes than you could before. Yeah, but if that shortens the distances, all the better. I don't think we have to see this reductionist vision of the world. And this goes through investment. And the financiers of novel investments, the green economy, it's the insurance sector, among others. So this is a formidable means which will allow us to finance the economy, but equally to generate strong growth and to avoid degrowth. And in parallel with that, a true introduction of harmful substances in the environment, greenhouse gas emissions, but we make old bones. We live longer and longer. Lifespan is greater. So how about the financing of the retirement age? We saw what happened. Now the equalization retirement, so we need to do it by cap. And here again, the sector of insurance is a key sector because it's the one that is forced to finance this capitalization-based retirement, thereby investing on the long-term period. So look at what happened in the United States, not only in Germany, the world over. It makes it possible to finance the finance in a long term. Talking about GAFAM, AI, who are the leader. Unfortunately for us, they are Americans. Why? Because they are privately financed investment funds. Well, you you can certainly shoulder losses if not private. So the blue chips, those companies that are winners, this is again the role of the insurance, the key role of insurance. It's true there is a lot of uncertainties, but we'll be able to invest and to transform these uncertainties through investment to create a growing world. So it's true, it reduces joblessness and creates economic development. There are although challenges, cybersecurity, but there again it's absolutely important that insurance must raise the awareness of its customers on this risk. A huge today, hacking also, so we need to ensure such risks. And there again, maybe, for example, in 10 years, I think we have examples there. I think now is time is passing by. I'm going to talk about something else. So inflation is going to remain high. Let me not lie. We see, of course, the $90 barrel. It was only $72 a couple of months ago. The food commodities, cocoa, wheat, coffee prices, and when we see, of course, the index of all such commodities the world over, it increased by 200% between 2020 and 2022, then it went down by 23%, and watch out, since 2024 it has increased by 15.5%. So all of the rates and the prices of raw materials have increased by 15.8%. Add to that inflation. If it remains high, central bank will not be able to reduce their prime rate and interest rate. A lot of investors said, oh, 2024, the interest rates are going to go down, everything is going to be the best. No. The interest rate, of course, the European Central Bank has increased, and even in the US 550. The interest rates are going to remain high, and in parallel, the state bonds interest rates are going to remain high, particularly in France. To the risk of being degraded, the public debt in France continue. We were France, the only country where the public debt increased. All of the Eurozone countries have made efforts. There is a danger, not only in France, but also all of the Eurozone. Our German neighbors are not happy. The Dutch, most countries, Italians, Spaniards, Portuguese have made tremendous efforts, but we in France, we haven't done. So this is a real danger over the medium term. A considerable risk of destabilization of not the end of the Eurozone, but we may come across difficulties. So we need to factor that in the risk scenario. Often the question is raised, the major ultimate risk, it would be the end of the hegemony of the dollar. The Chinese want, of course, to de-dollarize, want to take off the US from their dollar-based throne, but they're not ready. It will be maybe in 10, 15 years. When it comes, of course, that day will come, the dollar is going to collapse. It will be worse than the subprime crisis. But we will have to meet again for other editions of the Rendezvous of Casablanca. Yeah, so to every day suffice its crisis. So we need to innovate, invest, and you are here for that. To allow your companies, your clients to say we are here to insure all of such risks, but you continue to invest, to innovate. Then only 2 minutes before I finish, you, the sector of the insurance, and for each one of you hearing today, what should we do to draw gains from this crisis? We have to put in place anti-crisis management strategy. I have 4 of them. Niche strategy on products, services that we are the only ones to do, for which we have knowledge. Your case, this is your case. Second strategy, we have to make it known. And once again, I tip my hat to all of the team of the Casablanca Insurance Days, because it is important to communicate on these niches that you can propose. And you are going to convince customers, telling them we have niches, we have knowledge, and if we need to have more clients, we need to have more clients. Third strategy is innovation and caveat. You have to do training efforts. There is no need to train if you don't have manpower, if you don't have labor. You have to develop information. That is an important role in order to have the quality human resources that are going to work, to have last strategy, international development, expansion. And this is the proof with all of the nationalities represented here today. Very important to see this opening up on the world and to be able to get across the world customers. So with these four advantages, the most important thing is customer service. I think this is not being said enough in our activity sector. It's a service sector. So our service must be irreproachable, and you will be able to have market shares. Those who have a perfect, excellent service in the insurance, they will have a return on investment through stronger activity. Then, to conclude, if and when we do that, you will have all of the possibility to win over the forthcoming crisis and increasing economic activity in Morocco and in all other countries. Growth is not an end in itself. It's not a GDP. It's the BIP in French. It is the happiness in working. So, the gentleman is making a pun or play on word. So, by doing so, I create more employment. If I have more generation, I have more income, investment, consumption, insurance contracts. We are not philanthropists. We'll be having more business. And by having more business, investment, employment, we will be having more economic accomplishments and more economic happiness. This is all the good thing that I wish us. Thank you. And until we meet with you again, thank you very much, Mark Tuati, for your extremely interesting light and imparted to us definitely in time in a repetition crisis world. You have insisted on a key role of the advisory services with the thank you for having deconstructed and debunked this idea of degrowth and investing in the key role of the insurance sector for this innovative investments. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite us to the first panel discussion of the Casablanca Insurance Day. Our discussion is going to bear on the impact of the world economic impacts on the insurance sector. We are pleased to have with us three eminent experts of the industry. Everyone will provide their expertise. Please, Mr. Ala Zohairi, Director General of GIG Egypt and President of the Egyptian Insurance Federation.
Let's give him a round of applause. Je fais les introductions en français, puis je basculerai en anglais.
We'll continue with French and also in English. He will enlighten us on the economic dynamics.
Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. Je vous remercie d'accueillir également.
Thank you for welcoming Dr. Karneski, Director General of Africa Ray, a key actor in the development of the insurance and reinsurance in Africa. Welcome. Please be seated and please welcome Mr. Maxime Darmay, Senior Economist for France and the United States at the Alliance Group. Mr. Darmay, could you please be kind enough to join us on the podium? Mr. Maxime Darmay, are you with us? Please proceed.
Bien, nous allons.
We're going
remarks. So we're going to give her a couple of minutes to join us. So maybe the team is kindly asked to take or reach out to the Army's team. So our two keynote speakers are English speakers. So could you please use your headsets as interpretation will be provided into French.
Raise your hand and someone from the team will be happy to assist you. Je demande à l'équipe organisatrice de nous apporter quelques casques à l'avant de la scène. Merci beaucoup. Welcome to you, gentlemen. So we'll pursue the conversation in English. Hopefully, Maxime will join us in a few moments as he will be a part of this conversation also. Let me start with you, Dr. Corneille Karecki. You are the Group Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of African Reinsurance Corporation, Africa Re. Since 1996, you have contributed significantly to the development of the insurance and reinsurance industry in Africa. From your perspective, what are the top global economic and financial perspectives identified by the industry to be the most impactful?
Yeah, good morning to the audience, and thank you for inviting me to this wonderful conference, which we can't miss every year for the last 10 years probably. So it's a pleasure to be again here. On this question, my job is very easy because the first speaker has said it all. He covered all the challenges we're facing in our industry. Inflationary pressure, tightening of credit, and geopolitical tensions. So there's a lot of uncertainty in this world today, particularly to African players, where we have 83% of our turnover as Africa Re. The other 23% comes from the international business. We are impacted with the two major factors, which are the consequence of what we have just mentioned. One is the sovereign debt of the economies on the continent. And the second, of course, is the currency risk. So those two major issues are really the biggest. Of course, inflation also impacts those who are mainly in life, especially their investment, as when inflation goes up, as you know, some of our assets in which we invest are losing their values. This is what happened, for example, in 2022. As you remember, 2022 was one of the worst years for reinsurers around the world. And 2023 has been the best year over the last 2 decades. So a lot of volatility, a lot of uncertainty. You can't imagine operating in an environment where you have the worst year in 2 decades, followed by the best year in 2 decades. That mentioned the impact of the global financial markets, which have recovered strongly in 2023, while in 2022 they have been depressed because of government actions to rein in decade-high inflation, as you know. So it has become really complicated to predict even within 6 months. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your remarks, and we'll discuss a little bit further on the effects of these macroeconomic challenges. I'd like to turn to you, Maxime. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. You have been senior economist, France and USA at Allianz Group since 2022. You're based in Paris, but I know that you're perfectly English speaking, so if you don't mind. Yeah, just switch on the mic in the bottom, or we'll hand you another mic. So we were discussing 2022 and 2023 as being the worst and the best years for the industry. Now, in 2025, we expect significant developments worldwide, particularly with the US presidency and the potential return of Donald Trump to the White House. What ramifications could this have on the US and the global economy, and what are the global outlooks on Europe from your perspective?
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me now. Yes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. So, yes, indeed, I think many people do not realize how pivotal this election in the US is going to be, especially if Donald Trump was to be re-elected, right? So at Allianz, we looked deeply into the issue and what that would mean for many, many things, including capital markets, including for the Fed, inflation, economic activity, and so on and so forth. But I think, in a nutshell, the flagship policies that Mr. Trump has promised, should he return to the White House, is, I think you all know that, is to increase tariffs sharply on trading partners of the United States. So trade policy is, I would say, the main policy lever from which Donald Trump wants to reassure production into the United States, employment, and so on and so forth. So basically, he pledged to implement a 10% tariff on all trading partners and a tariff of up to 60% on Chinese goods. So if fully, obviously we think that would be highly disruptive to the global economy in 25. So we calculated that in this event, would find itself in obviously all find potentially yourself difficult situation of a trade, and we on the actual US rate would be since the 1940s, so quite a bit of a shock, right? So this is a downside scenario, right? We think that the Republican administration would be a little bit more pragmatic if Donald Trump was to be elected. First of all, there are many fellow Republicans within the party which I don't think would agree very much with Donald Trump's policies, because that would be, a big shock for the US economy. So we think Trump would likely water down on some of his proposals, right? So to be, a little bit more pragmatic. So this is one thing. The other thing is, we know that Mr. Trump, he likes to negotiate. He likes to strike deals. We saw that during his first term with China. He's actually signed a deal to increase US export to Chinese. So anyway, all that to tell you that we think the most likely scenario would be a negotiation with Mexico and Canada. Would be Mexico will be spared, we hope. But we think that Trump would go midway, so potentially imposing 5% tariff on EU imports, and potentially about maybe 25% tariff on Chinese goods, which would still be a very, very big shock, right? Because in this scenario, we calculate that the effective US tariff rates would rise from currently 2.5% of the tariff rate, and that brings this tariff rate to the highest level since the mid-1970s, right? So in this scenario, we have to be extremely prepared. That would be highly disruptive for the economy. And one thing I would also talk about is the impact on inflation, right? Because Mr. Trump also pledged to ban on goods coming from China, but imported to third countries, such as Mexico and Vietnam, so countries in Southeast Asia. So there's a lot of evidence, of this trade divergence. So lots of goods are being shipped from Mexico and Vietnam to escape tariffs, right? And Mr. Trump very mindful of this. And I think many people don't realize that if he's elected, we think he will crack down. He will crack down on this issue, meaning that basically he will step down custom checks at the border, just to verify, to check that all these goods They are indeed coming from Mexico, they are indeed coming from Vietnam, but they're not coming from China, right? So in this event, we have to be prepared because that would mean quite a bit of a supply chain shock, right? Because obviously, if you start to, to check all products coming into the United States, that creates a lot of backlogs, lots of delays, and that would push inflation. So inflation may come back next year if the Republicans win the presidential and Congress elections. So we have to be extremely mindful of that. And of course, if inflation spikes back up, that has also some implications for Fed.
Thank you so much for sharing with us these insights and the analysis conducted by Allianz for these different scenarios. And I'd like to come back to you a little bit later to have your perspective on the implications of that on the Moroccan economy and in the industry. Moving to you now, Mr. Ala Zuhairi. Ahlan wa sahlan, marhaban bik. You are the managing director of GIG Egypt, and you've been in the insurance market over 32 years. You were appointed president of the Federation of Afro-Asian Insurers and Reinsurance, and you are now the vice chairman. You hold a number of positions in various organizations, including chairman of the Insurance Federation of Egypt. Now, we'd like to have your perspective and assessment. What are the most severe global risks, and how do you believe the insurance industry can effectively mitigate the impact of these risks, particularly in addressing the economic challenges we were mentioning?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here, and I'd like to thank the organizing committee for having me for the second year in a row as a speaker. It's a pleasure and an honor also to be within this community. I believe that the insurance market are seeing a lot of risks around, and the global economy are facing a lot of risks. And we have seen the three speakers spoke a lot about this, particularly the first one, and Dr. Cornelius as well. I believe that we at an insurance market should not wait until the risk occurred and then try to mitigate it. What we have to do, as Abraham Lincoln said, that the best way to predict the risk is to predict the future is to create it. So we need to be ready for these risks and deal with it. In my opinion, of course, the geopolitical situation right now is one of the most important and the most effective risks that we are all facing, not only in the area, but we've seen even in Europe, there is a tense everywhere. So we need to really work on this. We are seeing a lot of, I'm talking from the insurance point of view, of course, we're seeing a lot of increase in the rates for the war insurance premium for the marine insurance. We are seeing a lot of insurance market that may not be able to support if a real concern happening. We need to be ready as an insurance market to mitigate this risk. And this is one of the most important things. The other thing is the inflation around the whole world is increasing a lot after we all came from the COVID issue. And then after the COVID, we are seeing a lot of disruption happening for the goods, and the products are not at the same level as before. So this created a lot of inflation in the whole market. And in the first, I think this is the first time we see, even in the US, inflation rates are double digit. We have not seen this before in the US or even in the UK, but in the Middle East, we are seeing a lot of inflation increasing in our countries. And this is also one of the things that we should be prepared for, because inflation is not only affecting the high price of the goods, but also affecting the ability of people to buy insurance, which is really, this is our main concern. If the inflation is increasing, it means that the people, especially the middle class or even the lower class, will not be able to afford buying insurance. And this is one of the things that we should work on to mitigate this risk. We have to be ready to have policies and products that really can meet the need and also be affordable for the people that cannot afford it. So in my opinion, geopolitical risk, inflation are the most important ones.
Thank you so much. Indeed, this focus on inflation and geopolitical risks, and we would like to discuss further on some of the initiatives that are put in place. Back to you, Dr. Kornei-Kareski. So we discussed these macroeconomic challenges, and we had a sort of an insight into all of this. What are the effects of these challenges? Are they similar to the experience of African insurers and reinsurers, and how can regional integration support the development of the industry?
Yeah, thank you again. The effects are multiple, as we have discussed, and the major one I see there are two types of players on the continent. Those who are in local market and operate and report their financials in the one currency. The major issue is inflation, as it has just been mentioned by my colleague Zuhair. So inflation is incredible. So, for example, our head office is based in Nigeria. We have a regional office, and as you know, because of different challenges, the inflation is extremely high, 34, 40, some sectors of the industry. And you wonder how we operate, because remember that all the assets are devalued at the same time with the currency and inflation. And generally, our clients, the insured and the insurance companies should revise the sum insured. And they are not doing it. Very few are doing it, which means they are becoming underinsured. And if you have an inflation of 39%, like in Egypt, and after 2 years, after 4 years, you understand that really your sum insured are depleted. And this creates a lot of challenges in terms of claims management. So a lot of litigations in the market, but also the cost of claims is increasing, and also cost of operation. So it really erodes profitability. Even if you have a growth of the market, in the market, you never have a growth of 39%, which means even if you grow by 20% and the inflation is 39, you are still making losses. Then investment, so currently Nigeria as an example, but this is applicable in Kenya, in Egypt, in Ghana, many economies. The interest rate you can get is 24%. And is a third, so meaning that you are losing money. So it's a big challenge. We can only hope. So the hope is not a plan. We can only hope that this will end soon. Otherwise, each of us must have its own strategy, as it has been mentioned by Mr. Twati, that you have to be the best in your market. You have to find a solution. In that uncertainty, that volatility, there are still opportunities to seize. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Indeed, hope is not a plan, but as you mentioned right now, the best way to predict the future is to create it, and focus on innovation is absolutely key, and on the quality of service also, as you just underlined. Thank you so much, Doctor, for sharing that. Now back to you, Maxime. We discussed these potential shifts in the U.S. presidency and
disruptions.
And and global economic landscape. How do you foresee the economic prospects for Morocco in such scenario?
Well, first of all, it's true that Morocco has made a lot of progress, right? The economy, the government is investing a lot in infrastructure. Tourism is picking up very sharply as well. I was looking at the latest data on auto exports to the EU, which are rising very strongly as well. So a lot of positive things are happening on the ground, I think. Also, I think Morocco has a lot to leverage upon its natural resources and natural endowment for the green transition especially. So it has a very large and long coastal windy coast, which it can use, to leverage its wind abilities, and also on solar as well, which is also being investment in solar is also being ramped up very, very sharply at the moment. So all of this is very positive for Morocco. And finally, Morocco, is not really aligned with one of the blocks. It's not really aligned with the Chinese bloc. It's not really aligned with the US bloc. So it's a bit in the middle, right? So you got this country, Morocco, playing, I would say, quite cautiously between these lines. So I think potentially that could be a good thing for Morocco to strengthen the relationship with the EU, which is the main market for Moroccan exports, right? And also potentially being spared by US tariffs, we just spoke about, right? I don't see really why the US will impose sharp tariff increases on Morocco, right? There's no really issue between the US and Morocco. There's no really trade imbalances between the two countries. So potentially, Morocco could navigate, I would say smartly, the economic landscape next year. But I would also like to talk about the shortcomings or the weaknesses of Morocco, and I think they really need to do something about it to fully leverage their potential. So first of all, the employment rate, so the number of people working in Morocco is extremely low, especially for women. I think it's only 40% of women are in the workforce. Of course, women work at home, but they're not in the labor market. So potentially, lots of countries like India have also this issue, right, to try to push up the activity rate of women, and Morocco has a lot of potential on that front. Second thing, also related to the labor market, the level of skills in Morocco is too low, and that's why Morocco has to invest a lot in education, in training, in skills, because obviously if you want to attract foreign capital, and Morocco needs a lot of foreign capital, it cannot develop itself alone, it needs to attract a lot of capital. You need to entice foreign businesses to come to Morocco, and one of the main things you have to do is really to have a very educated workforce. And at the moment, unfortunately, I think the skill of the overall population is too low. So this is the second thing. And the third thing is on the exchange rate policy. So Morocco has a very, very stable exchange rate, which can be a strength at some times, because obviously for businesses it's good to have a sort of predictable, stable exchange rate. But what does it mean? It comes at a cost as well. You have a lot of capital control in Morocco. So if you want to get your capital out of the country, this is very difficult. You've got caps, you've got limits. And I think this is deterring quite a lot of businesses to invest in Morocco, because obviously if you invest and you cannot pull out your profit, well, maybe you will invest a bit less, right? So I would say the government, the central bank have to find a fine line between these three things: the labor market, so the participation rate, especially of women, education, very important. All countries which upgraded to being industrialized, and I'm talking about like the Asian nations, Korea in the 1970s, Taiwan in the 1980s. More recently, we have the example of Vietnam, which is doing great. So Morocco should follow this path. And when you all look at all these examples, it's always the same thing. They increase the participation rate. They have developed education, skills, and also they open up more to foreign capital to finance their industrialization, right?
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your perspective and your thoughts on this matter. I think it is worth mentioning that there are broad strategies, both on the education system that you mentioned, that we're really hopeful for, and we see clearly on the ground some change there, and our central bank of Morocco also opening up progressively the exchange rate and to match, if indeed, what you just mentioned. Thank you again for your perspective. Mr. Ala Zuhairi, as I mentioned, you're chairman of the Insurance Federation of Egypt. Could you probably elaborate to close your remarks on the specific initiatives or measures implemented by the Insurance Federation of Egypt to mitigate and address the impact of economic risks within your insurance sector?
Oh, thank you very much for brought this to me, because it's really important to know what we doing as in our countries, because it's very important to see the macro problem, but also it's very important also to focus in our countries, because this is our main thing, that we need to develop the insurance markets in the region, and we should do this country by country, and also we should learn from each other what we should do. What we have done in the Insurance Federation of Egypt, we have created some insurance committees. These committees are really formed from the technical people who works in insurance companies. So this committee is between 10 and 13 individuals. We have put together a committee for the microinsurance. We have 22 committees in general, but one of them is for microinsurance. We wanted to develop the microinsurance. We know that for sure that we have between 30 to 40 people that cannot afford to buy insurance. So we wanted to have some products available for them in order to be able to buy it. So we have done like 9 products on shelf. People can really go and sell it very easy. And also we have done some protocols with other entities like the microfinance institution and the consumer finance institution. We were able to tackle and go to their clients through these protocols. And in 3 years' time, 6 million clients joined this system. So we have right now 6 million clients in the insurance market after 3 years of having the microinsurance. These people did not have insurance before, did not even hear about insurance, did not think that they can buy insurance. So this is one of the things that we have done in the Egyptian market, and our aim is to reach to 33 million policies during the coming 4 years. So we're working hard to find the right products and the right partnership as well. And we give them saving plans, we give them credit life insurance, we give them personal accident insurance and property insurance that was really affordable with a very minimal premium that is as much as like less than $5 or $10 per year. So they can buy it. That's why we had a large community of them, and very good combined ratio that not exceeding 60 to 70%. So insurance markets are making money, insurance companies are making money, and also these people are benefiting from that. So this is one of the things that we have done. The other thing is we have put also together an agriculture insurance committee. We wanted to develop the agriculture market in Egypt, the agriculture insurance in Egypt. It's very important. Egypt as a country has depended a lot on the agriculture and the crops, and we need to find a solution for that. And actually we are also getting a lot of experience from other markets. Morocco is one of them as well, Tunisia, getting the experience from countries in Africa like Kenya, what they have done and how can we develop this potential big market, the agriculture. Also, we have put together the sustainability committee. This is a very important committee. We need to find solution for NatCat claims, and we're working on having a pool as well. Also, we were able to have a travel insurance pool. The travel insurance market in Egypt was as little as 60 million Egyptian pounds per year. And with having a travel insurance pool, we convinced the government that each Egyptian issue a new passport or renew his passport should have a policy or an insurance cover for 7 years covering his business and leisure travel. So the market grew up in 1 year for travel insurance from 60 million to 1 billion. So we're able to do this together. So what the message is, we have to work together as market and insurance companies in order to find a solution to mitigate this risk. Last thing that I can mention here, that in order also to benefit from the claims that's happening in the market, and in order to mitigate the risk that can create claims, we have created a committee called Claims Committee. So this committee doesn't look at the claims and help the companies, but they go make analysis for the claim, try to find some solutions in order to mitigate this risk. Even they can go visit the clients, and then they put together some recommendations and send it to the insurance market. So we've been able to reduce also the claims that could occur.
Very interesting to understand what's happening on the ground. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I'd like to thank all three of you for your insightful contributions. Let's please give them a round of applause. And we really, truly appreciate your expertise. Thank you. I invite you all three to stay with us as we are and join us in the room. Please take your seats back in the room. Mesdames et messieurs, je vais poursuivre.
Gentlemen, I'm going now to shift back to the French language while the next panel discussants are going to get prepared to present to you with our next keynote speaker, an extremely expected presentation, and we are really pleased to have with us for his presentation the Executive President of Freedom Acquisition Corporation. He has inter alia been the world CEO of Credit Suisse since 2020. He's been appointed by Paul Kagame of Rwanda as CEO for the Rwanda Finance to promote in the Kigali Financial Center. And Mr. Tijan Tiam is going to talk about the challenges that our continent is now going through. Please, Mr. Tijan Tam.
Très bien. Mesdames et messieurs,
Ladies and gentlemen, morning. Good morning to you. I'd like to acknowledge the organizers of this event for honoring me into talking about this topic of importance at the Casablanca insurance meetings. I am doubly happy to be here because I spent the bulk of my career in the insurance sector. I was a consultant at McKinsey, and I was mainly working for insurance companies. And I was, of course, at Aviva, head of or boss for Europe, and the CFO of Prudential. Quite a long career in the field of insurance in different market. And the most personal reason is some of you know that I spent, well, my childhood in Rabat. So I am deeply owed to this very, very nice country in Rabat, with whom I have brotherly bonds. Well, let me from the outset say the following. I personally deeply believe I'm a believer in the social utility of our industry/sector, i.e. insurance. And that this conviction is going to me to be a permanent sheen on my presentation. So this has an essential role to play in a prosperous, equitable society, prosperous and equitable and fair, because the insurance has a function of resilience, isn't it? That is of great value. I am proud for having worked in the API. It's stats that are striking. 1.4 billion Africans. Every time 2 years ago I was talking about 1.2, now 1.4 billion. 1,490,000,000. So almost 1.5 billion Africans since I started speaking. So a very big 30 it is never enough mentioned. The world maps are fault. It is the projection of Mercator usually estimate the size of Africa on the globe. If you go on Google and you look, there are maps that are correct. And if we see the figures, 8.5 square kilometers, 9.6 for China, 3.4 for India, and I am in the habit of saying to Africa, in Africa you could put Brazil, the United States, India, and China only. You cannot see that in the world maps, but this is a real statistics. So we insurers are very fond of figures, and often people, of course, go make sure and reach a conclusion. So it is by far the largest continent. This is very telling, because otherwise, generally speaking, it is difficult to talk about Africa. When you have a continent which represents Brazil, US, China, and India, So everything we say in general is necessarily false. So be indulgent with me. I would have to remain indulgent. Maybe what I say does not really go in line with your personal viewpoints. But this is mine, and I'm going to try and draw some measured plans. And I will talk mostly about two things: the fundamental difference, and in terms of investors and managers for third parties, both being very important in Africa. Let us start with the protection of goods, of assets. Generally, the interest increases the way the GDP does, but in Africa much more, because you have a financial curve. You have the growth of the economy itself, and you have the penetration of the insurance, which is relatively low, thereby making it, this was my experience in Asia when I was managing Prudential to do double-digit growth for 15, 20 years time. And I think opportunities are very, very important and sizable. And the premiums are going to go on the upping more quickly than in the mature economies because of the growth of the African economies, but also of the higher penetration. Insurance, it's simple, makes everyday's life easier. Without insurance, we would not go out, we would not dare go cross the street, drive one's car, because we will be, of course, exposed to a lot of risk in all the walks of our lives. So we are all in the sector, and there are new products and services that we can propose. Often we're talking about the expansion of the mobile phone, smartphone, which is a fundamental change in view of the opportunity that it creates for the service providers and the insurers of the mobile phones, that we have a average and middle class which is increasing in Africa, and it's quite spectacular. It's spectacular to see, of course, the boom of this middle class, seeing the supermarkets, the cars, the houses, and all this speaks volume about. I'm looking for my words because I am more often used to speak French. It drives growth. So it is a growth driving engine. The other dimension to be discussed. I will not talk about all of the problems and issues you've talked about, distribution technology, the revolution which is ongoing, etc. in the sector. Just a comment now on one thing that I consider important. It is to say into the opportunities is created by the culture. For instance, Prudential was very important in Indonesia. When I was there were 200,000 Prudential agents, but in view of the Islamic aspect, was very important in designing the products and the type of investment wherein we put the premiums. And I think that if we think in a novel fashion, and about innovation in the earlier panel, there is a specific content, a content specific to many African countries where industries can innovate and create products that provide value for customers. I like insurance because you can do well while doing good. It is one of the rare industries and sectors the world over, and the economy over, where you can make money, which is legitimate, but of course by sleeping every night and sleeping well, because you would say, I have done something that has value and protects the lives of people and economic operators. The second aspect I'd like to talk about is that as it's related to life and protection and retirement. First, talking about demographics, which is one of the fundamental components everywhere. We know that in the Western world, it is the aging of the population, the retirement, the financing of the retirement. But here we have an exploding population. Take in my own country, Cote d'Ivoire, in 1963, it was 3 million inhabitants. In 2021, it is 30 million inhabitants. So it is an explosive growth, which often is considered as a problem by some. But I would like and believe that it is more an opportunity than a problem. But this also poses an unprecedented problem. It is very important that the African managers, faced with this demographics, realize that it is fundamental and that is a watershed to reintroduce retirements by capitalization. Otherwise, we will be having on hands catastrophic problems about 20 years. We see how one-child policy has caused in China. We do have that population that is increasing, that is very young. And if we don't really accumulate savings today to ensure retirement to this population about 30 years from now. 1.5 billion Africans, a lot. There would be in 2050 2 billion, and not that far. It's as far as was 2004. So actions to be taken must be taken here and now, very quickly. The other aspects related to that is the protection against accidents of life, for the middle class, health insurance, life insurance. We're talking about the rural areas and the income, but it is life accidents. I think 65% of person, of course, who are falling below the poverty line is because of the death of a parent, a relative, loss of a job. So do well by doing good. Having products that protect the families in such situations while allowing the private operators to make money. I've talked about equity a moment ago. There is also a problem of social justice. I would advocate for vis-a-vis to all governments. This is something that I've done in Asia with quite a success, is to say that the middle class in emerging countries, they're the ones who really won the lottery. If you see the probability at birth to reach a certain position, professor, engineer, doctor, etc., is relatively weak. So there are very few grounds for public money, the taxpayers' money, be used to profit these categories. I think this is fundamental, that there be a system put in place where the state's resources are concentrated on the focus on disadvantaged blocks of the population. We know, of course, that middle class are very strong when it comes to getting and benefiting from subsidies. It is one of the most important problems of the European system. It is something with an affordable promise to middle class. We have put in place systems of health, insurance, and retirement that are not financeable, and the overconsumption of these resources by the middle class leads to deficits that are continuously growing, and no government, right or left, has been able to curb them. Every year you read here and there the headlines reading a deficit. It is difficult to exceed the expectations because there's the demographic inertia that is so strong that has led to that phenomenon with negative consequences on economic growth. For too many savings is funding public deficit ongoing to the detriment of the productive sector of the economy. So this is a trap, a demographic trap that the emerging countries should avoid falling in. President of Indonesia was visiting London, and often we were also called as potential to attend, and I went to meet with him. His head of protocol told me, welcome, and he brought me to the and saved my son's life, because the health insurance products that we did in Algeria has allowed the son of that gentleman to remain alive and to get treatment. Health insurance, protection against the risks, the accidents of life, of course, is fundamental. Another aspect, of course, which is not often mentioned, is that we do a solvent request for healthcare that attracts private investment, because the actors and the operators know that there is a solvent request, and they avail to all of the population, not only to middle class. It's a triple win for the insurers, for the insurers, and for the state. And I think this is a huge opportunity in Africa. Innovation is a must, because the purchase power is not always there, but there is a major gap, and I have seen in your session you have talked about the protection gap, but it does exist. It is important and creates opportunities. important opportunities. The other aspect I wanted to also touch on is the retirement and savings, because one of the core activities of our industry is the third-party management. So, life insurance, defined widely, with asset management is increasing quicker than the GDP. And this is something that is really close to my heart, because one of the problems of the insurance European, it lacks there's a fundamental lack of equity. Of course, we say fonds propres in French, but equity is better, as we are used to using the word equity. So I'd use equity rather than net worth or fonds propres. So that's the opposite of debt. And I think the first provider of equity capital in all of the economies that I know of is the insurance industry / sector through long-term savings that is now afterwards reflected investments. I'm talking about Prudential, but Prudential was created back in 1948. And when it was the first investor on the London stock percent of cap. So all the sector of equity. There was lack of in Africa. The debt must come on the heels of, not for equity. And I was explaining to everyone, of course, all of the money in the American economy is the pension fund, BlackRock. Of course, PIMCO manages the pension fund, the Idaho fire brigades, etc. This is what like trillions of dollars they have and manage. So Valley leader. It is the retirement funds money that finances Sin Valley. So there is a misconception. There is a prejudice. It is the banks, the economy. No. Of course, they have streets, the banks, so much so they can lend, but never finance the long-term growth in the African economies. It is a missing egg in the system. We have the demography to do that. We have investment means, and we can also lead to extremely high return because packaged products offer. We were talking about risk returns, but we can offer savers and thrifters a risk return very attractive. Those who have gone to Abidjan, the third bridge of Marguerite. This is a project that I personally spent 5 years on. I finalized it in December 1999. For the interesting is I could not finalize the when you want debt, there's always financial markets, of course, working easily. It's less risky. There is capital, but the difficult thing is to find equity that allows you to leverage to the project. And it so happened that the Francophone states are in a retirement by distribution, and it was bizarre enough because the army had pension fund. So I went to meet Koulibaly, who was managed the pension fund, and I sold him my project, and I told him, of course, for the toll, and I explained to them that, and it was Koulibaly, of course, was open, and he accepted that. And I remember all of the financiers at the last floor of the ADB, and no one understood what that general was present for when we signed the agreement. It was one of the essential functions of the insurance in a continent where we have this demographics, which is potentially a future problem, where you have opportunities of investments where very high returns. One of the projects that I had, which had greater profitability, is the interconnection between Côte d'Ivoire and Mali. So, just to draw the line, of course, digit returns, so we can really come in to virtuous circles where we can, of course, to do high quality investments. And we've also talked about ESG, we've talked about solar, wind energy. We can develop all this for the benefit of the African economies, prepare the future, while providing retirements to future African retirees and avoid falling in the problem of debt. Because debt, finally, you take foreign denominated currency as loans for projects that have income only in local currency. One last point, we can really not have, and I'm watching my watch, otherwise it's my baby, I can talk and talk. One cannot have real development without institutional investors in local currency. Repeated. We definitely need, and this we cannot go without insurance companies. We need to use the face of demographics to accumulate capital. The insurance companies must be well positioned to manage this capital and to invest it in the economy and also avail thereof to create local capital markets. So this is something well understood in Morocco. I think Casablanca, there is a very active stock market, but it is also an indispensable component of development. There are some aberrations. Paystack. Have you heard about Paystack? A digital payment that was created by a young Nigerian 6-7 years ago. He could not find any financing. You know who finds it? He found his financing at Silicon Valley. A startup which is based, working only in Nigeria, and which is totally local. This is really a nonsense. The fact that the dynamic entrepreneurs cannot find any solution, reasonable financing solutions in their own economy, it's a nonsense. And in passing, he sold to his company for $50 million 5 years on to Stripe. Those who have invested $100,000 of equity, they have good returns. So by talking about exceptional returns, I'm talking about this. So in Africa, we have the possibility to generate this explosive growth and returns. And this is a very noble mission for investors and insurance companies to participate to this. So I really advocate for this to be well taken, understood, and that we develop a real, true equity culture, which is the distinctive feature of the American economy. All of the U.S. economy abundance to the abundance of equity, and all of the VCs, they really take their money from the pension funds, and they invest it for long term in the American economy with a risk taking. But there is no risk sharing, and when things are taking a turn to the bad, of course the debt must be paid. The equity capital must be always, in terms of appetite, must be given discrimination in favor of. So this is it, as I wanted to say, to summarize. With respect to pure risk management, protection of assets, there are huge growth opportunities because there is a strong economic growth in Africa led by demographics, by the inputs, by the new entrants in the middle class. I say always a joke, I prefer to serve the Asian growth because the pie it was greater than the capacity to eat parts of the pie because you have new entrants. You have a limited capacity, and the economy generates as many entrants in the middle class, and of course the share is smaller, because despite all of your efforts you cannot make greater penetration. These are single markets. I think that in Africa we have opportunities of the like. Africa is diverse. There are some countries such as Morocco, are working and paid well. Other countries less well, but I'm being told that. I say there is Sweden and there's Serbia in Europe. No one says, Croatia, we don't want to insult anyone. No one would say, I don't want to go to Europe because there's Serbia. So I only ask for everyone to be really very, very watchful when they see the African market, and that except in every geographical area, some countries are heading better than others. But there is a positive dynamic, and we hope that the contagion is going to go from the countries working well towards those working less than the contrary. So I'm optimistic by nature. I think that the well-faring countries are going to draw upwards the others. And in Africa, Morocco plays that role. When we see what Morocco is doing in sub-Saharan Africa, it's exactly that. So it is building leverage in its strengths and success to be able to export capital and knowledge to other countries. And I think the best place to do that, to invest in Africa, are Africans. And I often say to the heads of states, as President Kagame, that if they do 80-20, they will have to spend 80% of their time to talk to national companies, because the more you have prosperous and buoyant local companies, the more higher investments you will be having. You will find it difficult to bring in financial investors from abroad if you don't have a prosperous fabric. And all the things that would make these national companies are going to be the same as the one from abroad. So I think everything is consistent. Insurance was my entry point, and it has a very important role to play in this process for the protection of the goods and services, but also for the accumulation of quality savings and the equity capital formation, which is going to be the basis for successful companies. So this is it. I am very happy to have participated with you at this event. When I see the boom of the insurance days in Morocco really grow, we can measure the level of sophistication and development of an economy and a society, rather than to the place that the insurance plays in this economy / society. So I consider your presence, quality and number-wise, as a reason for being optimistic for Africa, which means that this message is trickling down, it is well understood, and that it creates positive perspectives and prospects for the economy. Thank you for your kind attention. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this. We have religiously heard you, and it was extremely interesting to share this strong message, ladies and gentlemen. These messages have gone through. The optimism keep with us, this deep connection whereby the narrative must be changed in view of the African continent. Many things are happening. Africa is diverse, regards what I'm saying, and it's up to us together to really go fetch more intra-African investments while capitalizing, leveraging our sturdy historical international partnerships. Ladies and gentlemen, before now forking on the next keynote speaker, we are now going to have 15 minutes coffee, tea break. Well, for a leg stretcher. So we'll be making it to this place, to a keynote. Of course, you wouldn't want to lose. Thank you. Or miss.